Hale was just closing the stable door when he heard a strange noise. He turned around, his hand instinctively reaching for the grip of his rifle. The pale moonlight spilled across the yard, and from the shadows emerged a tall, solid figure. An Apache woman taller than any woman Rowan had ever met was bent over, rummaging through a sack of horse feed. She straightened when she saw him, her frame large enough to block out the moonlight behind her. The war paint on her face had faded in the night wind, and her deep, dark eyes were calm in a way that was almost frightening. Rowan swallowed hard, raising his gun, though his hand was trembling slightly. The woman did not step back. "If you were going to shoot," she said in a low, steady voice, "I would already be lying on the ground." Rowan could feel his heart pounding like it might rip through his chest. I do not want to kill anyone," he replied, his voice smaller than he had hoped. "If you need food, then take it." She stared at him for so long that he felt like her gaze was seeing straight through his chest. Then, without another word, she tossed back a tied-up sack of grain, turned, and walked into the darkness, her broad silhouette fading into the vast prairie sky. Rowan stood there for a long time afterward, not because he was afraid, but because, in a life filled with solitude, this was the first time something had ever made his heart skip a beat. Since that night, Rowan Hale had not known a single truly peaceful morning. No matter what he was doing, drawing water from the well, chopping wood, or checking the fences, he always had the sense that a pair of eyes were watching him from the northern pine ridge. It was not a hostile gaze, but a quiet presence, heavy, like the breath of a coming storm. At first, he thought it was just lingering thoughts from seeing the Apache woman in the dead of night. But then, on Wednesday morning, while spreading hay for the horses, he heard the soft crack of a dry twig. Rowan turned around, saw no one. Only a fleeting shadow across the hillside. He muttered under his breath, "You are still here, are you not?" Silence answered him. That evening, when the sun bled a deep crimson across the sky, that silence finally stepped out of the darkness. She was there, the tall Apache woman, standing like the earth itself had risen just to carry her footsteps. Rowan was so startled, he dropped his hoe. She did not smile, did not frown. She only looked at him. "You look at me like a starving man looks at a piece of bread." Her voice was low, firm, and every word struck him straight in the chest. Rowan flushed red. I did not mean to make you uncomfortable." She took one step forward. He took one step back. "No man has touched me for many months. Not since my husband died." She stopped right in front of him, her breath warm and close enough to make Rowan choke on air. "Do you know what that feels like?" Rowan swallowed hard, eyes dropping like a child caught doing something wrong. I do not. I have never. I've been with any woman." That confession changed something in the air. The tension of the forest lifted, replaced by the quiet curiosity of a new wind. She tilted her head, her eyes still sharp but softer than before. "A man who has never belonged to anyone," she murmured. "And he looks at me like that." Rowan clenched his fists to stop himself from trembling. "You keep appearing and disappearing. I do not know what to think." She suddenly let out a soft laugh, rare and husky, like stones breaking in a mountain stream. "Good. As long as you are thinking about me." That line left Rowan frozen in place, and she, after leaving his heart dangling by a single thread, turned and walked away. Her tall figure like a silent challenge. "Come find me, if you dare." Ever since that crimson-red afternoon, Kiara's presence was no longer something hidden. She came to the ranch as if it had always been where she belonged. Rowan never heard her footsteps, but time and again, he would turn to find her swinging an axe into the thick log he had been struggling with since morning. With such ease, it almost insulted his manhood. On another day, he saw her carrying an entire bundle of hay on her shoulder, walking as lightly as the wind. Rowan felt both embarrassed and amazed. "You do not have to do all that. This is my job." Kiara glanced at him, her dark eyes glinting with mischief. "I am not used to sitting still, and you need help." Rowan scratched his head, mumbling, "I just am not used to having someone here." She laughed again, a sound that warmed the whole afternoon. "I know, but you will get used to it." The days passed with a strange but gentle rhythm. They shared dinner together, sometimes without saying a word. But the silence was full of warmth. Rowan slowly realized he was waiting to hear her footsteps, hoping to hear her voice call his name, longing to see her broad shoulders dip beside the fire when night came. One night, the cold was harsh, and the wind howled across the wooden roof. Rowan stood with his arms crossed in front of the fireplace. Kiara stood beside him, the heat from her body drifting over and making him feel strangely unsteady. At last, Rowan gathered his courage and asked, "Kiara, why do you keep coming back here?" She looked into the fire for a long moment, as if searching through something deep inside. "Because here, no one orders me around. No one demands that I be someone I do not want to be. Here, I feel like I am still alive." Rowan's heart pounded. "If you want to stay, I will not say no." She turned to him and her gaze made him feel like his feet had grown roots into the floor. "You say that, Rowan Hale, but do you understand what that means to someone like me?" Rowan did not look away this time. He reached out, hand trembling slightly, and for the first time in his life, he dared to do what he wanted. He gently touched her large, calloused hand. Kiara did not pull away. She simply gripped his hand, firm, strong, full of life, like a promise that did not need words. "I choose you, too." The dry season had begun to sweep across the prairie. Gentle evenings by the fire quickly gave way to an air that felt heavy, like stone pressing against the chest. Rowan could feel it in Kiara's eyes, a kind of unease she tried to hide, but could not. One morning, while Rowan was tending to the horses, Kiara suddenly placed her hand on his shoulder and gave a gentle squeeze. "Rowan, they are coming." He turned to her. "Who?" She took a deep breath, as if bracing herself to speak something painful. "My tribe. They want me to return, to force me to marry my late husband's brother. I have refused for too long. Now, they are no longer asking. They are commanding." Rowan felt a chill spread through his chest. "You do not want to go back. I want to live. I want to choose my own life." Her voice was hoarse, trembling slightly. "And I am not choosing to go back." He wanted to hold her, but feared it might hurt her more. Before he could react, the sound of horse hooves thundered from a distance, heavy, steady, full of rage. Kiara immediately pushed Rowan toward the stable door. "Get to the cellar, now." They ran to the small underground shelter, hidden beneath the storage shed. Rowan lifted the hatch. Kiara climbed down first, and he followed close behind. Above them, the horses came to a halt, followed by a shout in deep, angry Apache. "Kiara, come out. You belong to the tribe, not to the home of this white man." Rowan could feel Kiara's breath close beside him. The space was barely large enough for the two of them to sit side by side, their heads nearly touching. He noticed her hand was trembling. "Just slightly, Kiara," he whispered. "I will not let them take you." She turned to him, her eyes full of tears but burning with pride. "Rowan, I am not hiding because I am afraid of them. I am hiding because—" She placed her large hand on his cheek, then gently slid it down to his neck. "Because I want to stay with you." Her breath was hot and close, so close that the outside world disappeared. Then, in that tight, dark space, Kiara leaned in and her lips met as a kiss that was both fierce and trembling, as if she poured every last bit of her soul into it. When she pulled away, she whispered, her voice broken, "That is why I came here. You are the only one who ever made me feel alive again." Rowan pressed his forehead against hers and whispered, "If they want you, they will have to step over my dead body first." Above them, footsteps pounded the ground. 7 torches moved around the ranch. Rowan gripped her hand tightly. The confrontation could no longer be avoided. "Thank you for being here with me. Let me know where in the world you are listening from, and if this story has touched your heart, please consider subscribing to the channel to support me. I only wish you peace and happiness, wherever in the world you are hearing this story." When the sound of torches stabbing into the ground echoed outside the stable door, Rowan knew the moment he could no longer avoid had come. He looked at Kiara in the darkness of the cellar. Her eyes were full of worry, but shining with something even stronger. Absolute trust. "Let me go out," Rowan said softly. "Rowan, do not." He placed a finger gently on her lips. "If I do not step out, They will burn this entire ranch. I will not let them burn you inside it." She bit her lip and nodded slowly, pain flashing in her eyes. Rowan climbed up and pushed the hatch open. Red firelight poured in, casting a determined glow on his face. In front of the ranch, 10 Apache warriors stood in a half circle. Their torches flickered, lighting up the war paint streaked across their faces. The one leading them, tall and broad-shouldered like Kiara, stepped forward. "Our women are not allowed to run," he said, his voice booming like rock cracking against a mountain. "Give us Kiara. The white man has no right to keep her." Rowan stood tall, gripping his rifle, even though he knew it would mean little against 10 seasoned warriors. "She is not being kept here," he said, his voice trembling but unyielding. "She chose to stay." The warrior laughed with contempt. "Chose? Women do not get to choose. The tribe chooses for them." Rowan took a deep breath, then shouted, his voice breaking from emotion, "If death is the price for her freedom, then I will pay it." All 10 warriors hesitated. Rowan did not stop. The words came out like fire. "She is mine, and I am hers. We chose each other." Another warrior bared his teeth. "And a skinny little white boy like you dares to speak to us like that?" Rowan raised his old rifle. It was not professional, not threatening, just a man ready to go as far as it took. "I do dare." The silence that followed stretched like an eternity. Wind blew the ashes from the torches, swirling them between the two sides. Then the leader raised his hand. "We will report to the chief. If she rejects the call of the tribe." He looked Rowan up and down, his eyes full of contempt. "And something else. Caution. Then both of you will bear the consequences." They left like a storm, kicking up dirt and dust into the night. Rowan exhaled sharply, his legs almost giving out. He turned back toward the cellar. Kiara was already standing there, eyes red, lips trembling. She walked up and threw her arms around him, holding him tight as if the world had nearly taken him away. "Rowan, you just challenged my entire tribe." He wrapped his arms around her. "For you. Only for you." When the last torch from the tribe disappeared behind the ridge, the ranch fell into a heavy silence. Rowan could still feel the heat of confrontation clinging to his skin, his hands trembling slightly from the adrenaline. But when he turned around, he saw Kiara standing a few steps away. Her face was not angry, not afraid, but filled with a deep pain she was trying to hide. She walked toward him slowly. The moonlight slid down her broad shoulders, making her frame appear both powerful and strangely fragile. "Rowan," her voice was hoarse, "do you know what you just did?" Rowan swallowed hard. "I do. No." She shook her head, lips trembling. "You do not. You challenged my entire tribe. You could die because of me." Rowan stepped closer and gently took her hand. "If death is the price to keep you here, I accept it." Those words hit the one place inside Kiara she never allowed anyone to reach. She suddenly dropped to her knees, shoulders shaking as if the proud woman had finally allowed herself to break in front of the one man who deserved it. Rowan rushed to hold her. Her body was bigger, stronger than his. But right now, she trembled like a child. "I left everything behind," she whispered into his neck. "My tribe, my family, my honor, all for you. Do you understand that, Rowan?" He cupped her face and gently made her look at him. "Kiara, you have not lost anything. You are simply stepping into a new life. But I am afraid." "Afraid of what?" "Afraid that one day you will regret it." Her voice was so soft, it was like the wind brushing across a wound. Rowan placed his forehead against hers, his hands holding her face like the most fragile treasure. "Kiara, I did not know what love was before you came into my life. I have nothing to regret. There is only one thing I fear." She looked up gently. "What is it?" "That you might leave." Tears spilled from her fierce eyes, the tears of a woman who had spent a lifetime fighting, never knowing what it felt like to be held. She whispered, her voice cracking, "I will not leave you. Even if I have to fight the whole tribe." Rowan pulled her into his arms, holding her so tightly it felt like the two of them were becoming one. "Then let us start over. I will spend the rest of my life making sure you never regret choosing me." In his arms, Kiara closed her eyes, allowing herself, for the first time in many years, to believe in a future free of chains. That night, they did not sleep. They simply held each other for a long, long time. like two souls who had finally found the only safe place left in this vast and ruthless world. 2 months passed like a spring stream, quiet, yet full of new life. From a barren ranch, Rowan's land began to change in shape, in color, even in spirit. Not because of luck, but because of the powerful, patient, and gentle presence of the Apache woman who chose to leave an entire tribe behind just to stand beside him. Kiara worked as if every swing of the axe, every bundle of hay, every fence post was a declaration to the world. I belong here. For the first time in his life, Rowan had someone to eat breakfast with, someone to chop wood with, someone to laugh with when the young colt knocked over the water bucket. He had never been used to having anyone around. But Kiara was not just anyone. She was the one who made the wide, empty space of the ranch feel full. One golden afternoon, Rowan had just finished building a new roof for the stable. Sweat trickled down his neck, and when he looked up, Kiara was standing near the fence, watching him with a look she had never given to anyone before. He walked over. "You are looking at me like I just did something amazing." Kiara crossed her arms, but the corner of her mouth curled ever so slightly. "You have done more than you think, Rowan." He frowned a little. "Like what?" She stepped closer, her shadow falling over him like a steady tree, like turning this place into a home. Rowan looked around the small vegetable garden they had planted together. The new fence line, the clean water barrels, the reinforced stable, all of it carried both their hands. He swallowed deeply, his chest suddenly warm. "I never thought I could do that for anyone." Kiara took his hand. This time, Rowan did not hesitate. He held her large, warm hand as if it had always been there. "What I found here," she said softly, her eyes fixed on his, "is worth more than everything I left behind. I found freedom." She stepped even closer, her voice gentler now. "And I found you." Rowan touched her cheek, gently brushing away the last trace of sunlight. "Kiara, you did not just find freedom. You brought it to me, too." She rested her forehead against his, their breaths blending together. "We saved each other, Rowan Hale." He gave a quiet smile. "And we will keep doing that, one day at a time." What was once a silent and barren ranch had become the place where two wounded souls learned to trust, to breathe, and to come alive together. That summer arrived with the scent of freshly cut grass and the gentle murmur of a stream at the foot of the hill. For Rowan Hale, time was no longer measured in days or months, but in quiet moments beside the woman who had chosen to leave behind an entire world just to stand by his side. For Kiara, every morning she woke up on this land felt like a silent victory, a triumph over fate, over the rules she no longer accepted, and over the fear that her heart might never be free. The tribe never came back. Perhaps they considered her dead by the rights of the Apache. When someone leaves the tribe, their soul no longer exists in the memory of the people. Kiara knew that truth hurt, but when she saw Rowan sitting on the porch, bent over to repair his worn-out boots, she understood. It was pain, but it was worth it. One afternoon, as a cool breeze drifted through the porch beams, Kiara had just finished building a new rack for drying meat. Rowan stepped outside, standing quietly for a long moment, watching her. "You are looking at me like you have something to say." Her voice was low, warm, and more grounded than in the early days when he first met her. Rowan walked over and gently touched her strong hand. "I am thinking about the future." "What kind of future?" Rowan took a deep breath, looking into her eyes as if seeing the rest of his life in them. "A future that you and I build with these hands. Not your past, not my loneliness. Just us." Kiara softly touched his cheek, her eyes glowing with the tenderness that only those who have lost too much know how to cherish. "Rowan, you have no idea how much you saved me." He shook his head, smiling gently. "No, you saved me first." They stood close together, letting the breeze carry away everything that no longer mattered. On this patch of land, two souls who once belonged nowhere had found a place to root themselves, not because of the earth, but because of each other. Kiara rested her head on his shoulder, her voice like a vow. "I used to fear that giving everything up would leave me empty, but now I know. I have lost nothing. I am only beginning." Rowan squeezed her hand tightly. "You will never have to begin alone again." Before them, the sun sank behind the hill, leaving a band of orange light that wrapped around the ranch like a blessing. And in that moment, They both understood. They had not chosen each other in desperation. They had chosen each other in hope, a new life, free, resilient, and built day by day. With their own hands, my friend. Love is not a magic spell that makes fear disappear. It is the strength that helps us stand tall, even when fear is still there. Only the